I'm more afraid of the audience than the audience is me, kind of like wild animals. That's what they say about wild animals. Except bears. I think bears, they're fine with me. They're not afraid of me at all. They're not afraid of me at all.
Sorry, you mean the audience isn't or bears aren't?
Bears are not afraid of me. The audience, okay. I think there's a little bit of mutual trepidation, but bears are like, no, I could eat her in 3 bites.
So if you see the audience in the woods, you should make a lot of noise. But if you see a bear, you should climb a tree still.
Exactly.
Perfect.
From open mics to trivia nights, films and plays to festivals and concerts, events don't just happen on their own. Behind the scenes, someone is organizing everything, and that someone is the producer. But what exactly is a producer? What do they do? How do they do it? And can anyone be one? I'm Veronica Diamond, a writer, comedian, and sometimes independent producer. I love talking shop with other creators and hearing their advice, insights, and war stories. If you've ever wondered how shows get made, this is the show for you. Welcome to The Means of Producing.
I'm more afraid of the audience than the audience is me, kind of like wild animals. That's what they say about wild animals. Except bears. I think bears, they're fine with me. They're not afraid of me at all. They're not afraid of me at all.
Sorry, you mean the audience isn't or bears aren't?
Bears are not afraid of me. The audience,
okay.
I think there's a little bit of mutual trepidation, but bears are like, no, I could eat her in 3 bites.
So if you see the audience in the woods, you should make a lot of noise. But if you see a bear, you should climb a tree still.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. Bears can climb a tree. There's no way that I'm escaping a bear. I just submit. I'm gonna get eaten.
And that's respectful of nature.
Right.
You know what? I think actually we've gone against God's creation in a lot of ways. We should be getting eaten by bears more.
Yeah. Brave of you to be the person to say it.
Yeah, you get
agree.
me on camera and I immediately come out as pro God and pro getting eaten by bears. So.
That question that was like, would you rather be found by a bear or a man in the woods? I would pick a man because I'm a 40-year-old lesbian and I think he'd ignore me.
That is a power move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, if I'm having a butch enough day, man, he kind of can't see me.
Exactly. I'm basically invisible. All right. Let's get started with the actual interview portion of this interview.
Good opening bit.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello and welcome. You're the person that's technically here, but you don't even really exist yet. This is why I'm a bad host.
Not fair.
For podcasts and stuff. I'm nervous. This is the audience that I'm afraid of. And they don't even exist yet. Anyway, I'm going to pretend that but I can't pretend that because I got to hello. And welcome to The Means of Producing, a podcast about producing. I'm Veronica Diamond. This is my horrible creation. Thank you for tuning in. We have an amazing guest on the show today, Katy Warren.
That's me. I'm the guest.
You're the guest. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being super chill and for riding the bits, like the waves. The waves of bits.
Are we comedians or are we bit surfers? You know?
Oh, we're bit
surfers.
Right? I surf the waves of humor. Katy, who are you?
Oh, great question. My name is Katy. I'm from St. John's and I live in St. John's. Boring. I'm trained as an electrical engineer, but these days working as a producer and performer of comedy in the city.
You are one of the smartest people I know. You are a very, very talented improviser, and you're a great host. And I really enjoy your show. I've been on it many times. Tell me a little bit about your show.
I would love to.
And maybe you could also tell them.
Oh my gosh. Hi, guys. So, NewFunny is a show that I co-produce with Cara Winsor-Hehir, and it is a monthly showcase for under-platformed, or what we like to say non-SWAM comedians. And that acronym that we're using is Straight White Abled Man, SWAM. So basically, anybody who is not a straight white abled man and would like to do something funny for 7 to 10 minutes can put their name in a lottery and hopefully get a spot on the show.
All right. So that's the show. It happens once a month. And how long have you been doing it now?
Oh, we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary of it, actually. We started in 2021.
Congratulations. Wow. I don't think I've done anything for 4 years consistently except breathe, which is an achievement.
And you've got that locked in, to be fair.
I mean, not really. I choke on my own spit a lot, Katie.
Oh, but you know, practice makes perfect. We're all rooting for you on year 5 of breathing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If I can get through 5 solid years of breathing. Oh no. Gotta restart the clock. Okay, so that's the show. What is, if somebody were to walk into a NewFunny show, what's the typical vibe of the show?
Oh, it's weird. It's a weird show. We love surprises at NewFunny, and we think of ourselves sort of like halfway between like a stand-up comedy show and like a vaudeville show almost. So we're very lucky to have burlesque performers and drag performers. We get a lot of stand-up comedy. We get poetry and music and all sorts of unusual things, really. So it's a fun variety, and we're lucky to have one of the warmest audiences in the city. Like, it's a great opportunity for people who are trying something if they're not sure it's going to work, because we are lucky to have a room full of people who are trying to laugh and trying to have a great time. So we've had, I think, about 35 or 40 people do stand-up for the first time at our shows.
Holy shit.
Yeah, which is like one of our big sort of proud achievements. But I would say it's an experimental, funky comedy space.
Yeah, I think of NewFunny as a variety show more so than your standard stand-up show, because you really don't know what you're going to get, and that's really exciting and fun. That's probably why people keep coming back, along with stellar performers like you and me.
You. Yeah, well, Veronica is a NewFunny favorite for sure, right? You've been, well, you were on, I don't know if you were on the very first one, but from very early on, you've been a regular appearance at the show.
Yes, I like the show. It's a really fun vibe. There's all sorts of different acts. There's people trying out weird new stuff, and it's weird. Some of it is really, really strange. But I like that because it spins off into plays. It spins off into sketch comedy. It spins off into people forming their own improv teams and going off and creating other new things. I think it's a really great room to create. It's really a room that helps promote creativity, I think, is what I would say about NewFunny. How did you get into producing this show?
By accident. So before producing NewFunny, I had done stand-up comedy one time, several years before the first NewFunny. But I'd done a lot of improv, and I moved back into the city, and there wasn't a lot of improv happening in 2021. And so I was like, okay, improv isn't going to be a performance avenue for me. Maybe I can try out stand-up. And then I went to a couple of the open mics, and I don't at all mean this as a slight to our producers, but there are big demographic differences between most of the comedians in the city and myself in ways that I don't want to come to a show and hear a bunch of jokes about how much you hate your ex-wife. And the boys need a place to do that. I get it. But it made it feel really unwelcoming to me, right? If people are making jokes about gay people or whatever, then I'm like, okay, probably I'm not supposed to be here. And then I was chatting with Cara Winsor-Hehir, who had been involved in comedy and had to take a step back for a lot of the same reasons, right? And we were like, if we had our own show, we wouldn't even let straight white guys perform. And if we had our own show, it would be so weird and people would do all sorts of different stuff. And I thought we were just talking big game, you know. And then she messages me and she says, I booked a ship. We got 3 weeks. Find me some performers. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll find performers. And from there out, it's just sort of been like we were really lucky that the first one we sold out the ship. And that's great. It was in, lockdown time, so the capacity was half what it is now, but it was still like a really clear signal from people that this was something our comedy scene was missing and that they would show up for it if it existed. And we got really lucky that the folks at the ship have sort of a long legacy of having like weird folk musicians and poetry nights. And so they were like, they've just allowed us to keep coming back. And yeah, basically it's a thing I did one time that got out of hand.
Out of hand 4 years later. And it's monthly, so I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not a math person, but 4 times 12 is some number.
Yeah, and we lost a couple when we closed again for COVID. But yeah, gosh, I've never thought about that. But I guess we probably have done certainly more than 40 shows. Oof.
It's a lot. It's a really fun show every time. So I think you should feel really proud about that. Like that's a really big achievement.
Oh yeah, one thing that the NewFunny production team is not short on is ego. We feel very proud of the project.
Okay, well maybe you should feel a little less proud. Actually, maybe you need to work a little harder.
There it is, and that's what comedy is always telling us. Stop being proud of your work.
Hustle. That's awesome. So one of the things that I think is really fascinating and like something that I would love to do more in my work that you, I think, do really well in your producing is the back end, like spreadsheets, like the categorization. You have a form that people have to fill out in order to apply, and that goes out months ahead of time. Like you're compared to me and compared to a lot of other local producers, very on the ball when it comes to the organizational aspect of it. Can you speak to that a little?
Certainly. Yeah, I think that there are not a lot of comedy producers who come from an engineering background.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, I don't want to generalize, but I come from a very analytical mindset and a very process-oriented mindset, right? So for me, putting together a show is overwhelming, and it has a lot of moving pieces. And if that was hard to keep track of, I would not do it. Right? If it was stressful once a month to make a show, I would have quit. Mm-hmm. So instead, we've set up this system that it's sort of like, I really feel like the show runs itself in a lot of ways. And of course, and I also have a passion for Google Forms. Like I love getting on the computer and making a little Google sheet. Don't worry about that.
PC?
But, yeah, PC yeah. Always.
Gotta
yeah.
Be.
Oh yeah. That's a whole other topic. But from my software testing background, I'm not a Mac user. Yeah. But yeah, so often people are like, wow, it's so organized. Which I think is one of the many benefits of me having no idea what I was doing when I started. Right? Like it's often people who become comedy producers were comedians for a long time first. And they learned what they know about producing from watching other producers, which I guess is sort of the concept of this podcast.
Correct.
But I didn't have that advantage of having like a mentor with a bunch of comedy producing experience. I had a mentor with a bunch of comedy experience in Cara. But so for us, it was sort of like, okay, well, we don't know how everyone else is doing it, so we'll just do it our way and whatever makes sense to us. And like when we started the show, we do even door split, right? So everybody who's on stage gets an even cut of what comes in. These days now, actually, we have started giving me one extra piece of the pie.
You should.
For my producing tasks, which I'm not apologizing for.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. Producers should get paid.
But when we started the show and we were doing the profit sharing, the other shows in the city weren't doing that. And I didn't know that. I was just like, you're just putting people on stage and not paying them? Like, why are you getting all the money, right? And that's something that, again, we've gotten a lot of compliments from people on. And it's just like, it felt like common sense to us, right? So it's like, the show runs on Google Sheets because I run on Google Sheets. And that's what made the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The money thing I feel has evolved in open mic comedy here. When I was starting off, basically the open mics, nobody got paid ever at all, period. And it's only slowly that people as they became more confident in their producing, as they started to realize the value that they were bringing in audiences, that they started to realize that it's something that we should ask money for. But people really undervalued comedy, and I think comedy is still undervalued. There is some like balance there. I understand between people who are doing experimental stuff, self-expression stuff, trying things out, and sometimes that's not really fun to watch. So I can understand there's a balance sometimes between I think the pay what you can shows are a really good
in between, because the audience can decide for itself what it was worth. If that night is just not worth $5, and that's totally possible.
And we've all done a set that wasn't worth $5.
I absolutely have. I've done many sets. I'm doing work right now that is not worth $5. Yeah, so that's fantastic. I love to hear it. We love to hear supporting artists and trying to pay ourselves for the work that we're doing, because it is valuable personally to people, and also it's valuable to the economy and to businesses. Do you have like a favorite moment from your show?
Oh gosh.
Or a favorite part of producing or something?
That's a great question. I think we had a very fun Halloween show last year that I hosted in drag, which
As Chapel Rowan?
As Chapel Rowan. And that was really fun because nobody recognized me at my own show, right? Because, but I think like my favorite type of moment at the shows is seeing people do something for the first time and having it kill, right? Like we recently had esteemed improv producer Miri Rain on the show, and she cut up a full onion on stage while eating it, and having a conversation with an audience member about feelings and how they work in order to see if she could make herself cry in front of other people.
Wow.
And that was such a, like, that's never happened before anywhere. Like, that's never happened at the ship. It's never happened anywhere.
AI could never come up with that. It would never generate that idea.
You could put 1,000 AIs in front of 1,000 AI typewriters.
In front of 1,000 monkeys.
And the monkeys would break the typewriters, and Miri would eat the onion. Right? I think that's my favorite type of NewFunny moment, is when somebody fills out the form and says, like, I guess this is an experiment. Like, I don't really know what this is, because I'm really thankful to have built a show culture that people feel comfortable bringing us those ideas. I'm really resistant to calling NewFunny a safe space, because I think good comedy is challenging and surprising, and I can't guarantee my audience safety from surprises. But I really like that we've put together a welcoming enough environment that people are willing to do something really deeply weird and believe that the audience is going to take the ride with them. Mm-hmm. And we got a bunch of different audience reactions to that onion thing, right? A lot of people were thrilled by it. Some people were disgusted. But that's also, I think, really powerful comedy can get you an emotional reaction other than a laugh. Mm-hmm. And that's something that is really our, like, bread and butter at the show.
And your show is a comedy show. Like, NewFunny is a comedy show, but comedy is not necessarily, like, you're not guaranteed comedy 100% of the time. It's, I would say, more of like an artistic showcase show with a really strong comedy element, because Newfoundlanders are funny as fuck. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be funny. and art is weird, and sometimes weird art is funny, right?
Yes, yeah.
So that's great. So I want to go back to circling back to something you said right off the top. So you mentioned that this is a show that's not for swam, straight, white, abled men.
Yeah.
So here's the question that I think I've heard a lot of people comment on. I've been at shows where you were there and people were on stage talking about your show to you sort of indirectly about this. Do you consider it to be discriminatory to exclude straight, white, abled men?
I certainly believe it to be exclusionary. I think that discrimination is a big, serious word that should be saved for big, serious things. And I understand that NewFunny is one of the best shows in the city and everyone wants to do it. I get that. Also, there are so many comedy shows in the city that are run by men, that the lineup is predominantly straight, white, abled men. and that they can feel automatically welcomed there, in a way that does lend itself to exclusion of a lot of the people that perform on our shows. Because men, when left alone in a group, will often start saying offensive things. And there's, of course, lots of brilliant comedians in the city who don't qualify for our show, but who I would book, right? Like, who are good comedians and good people. But I think that in order for marginalized people to thrive and enter into a broader environment where they're not welcomed, they need a strong launch pad. And they need an environment where they know that the barrier they're going to be facing is whether or not the joke is good, not whether or not the people there are ready to hear a joke from a person who sounds like them or who looks like them.
Or if they're going to get like accosted, somebody's going to get up in their face just because of the way that they look.
Exactly, right? Like so as much as I take it as a big compliment when the people who are excluded from our show want to do it. But I hope that they understand the value of them being there in a paying us $10 capacity.
Yeah. When I started doing stand-up, there was no NewFunny. It was many, many years before we got anything like NewFunny. And I, for a fact, know that there are comedians who were driven away by acts that they saw at stand-up. And I know that there are a lot of people who will say, well, if you can't stand it, like, comedy is not a safe space, so don't go to the comedy shows. And I feel like that is itself also exclusionary in the same way that you're talking about. And I had to eat a lot of shit from people, like people making fun of me, people like visiting comedians who just picked on me. And I could stand it because I think I'm a tough person. But I don't think that that should be a requirement of people to perform art, to do comedy, to try out something that's really fun and like satisfying and helps you grow and learn as a person. Like, I think comedy is a really great thing, both for the performer and for the audiences. So I think that it's great that you have this space. I recognize that what you're saying about needing to craft spaces for people to feel welcomed. And I always say, I'm in print as saying, comedy is not a safe space, right? You can at best create safer spaces, but most comedy shows are at bars. So bottom line, you're entering into an area that has alcohol. It's not a safe space. And even if you're doing it in a theater, you know, as you say, artistically, it might not be safe topics. But you should at the very least feel like you're not going to get assaulted, or you're not going to get harassed, or you're not going to get like attacked at a show when you're starting out and you're still in that sort of vulnerable area. I think that you at a certain point people need to build up a tough skin, but that can come later. That doesn't have to be immediately right out the fucking gate.
Yeah,
right?
well, not to, you know, go back to my engineering life, but it feels a lot like my work offshore, because that's an unsafe environment. You are on a boat in the middle of the ocean where everything can go wrong, right? There's no way to make that safe, but you make it a safer working environment in two ways. First, with personal protective equipment. Right? You make sure that you're wearing your work gloves and your steel toes and your life preserver and whatever it is. And in comedy, I think that's like your confidence, right? Like, that's your assertion that you are entitled to the space. And sometimes your PPE at a comedy show is two of your friends, and you get them to sit right near the front so that you'll hear them laughing during your set. And sometimes your PPE is showing your jokes to some of your friends before the show, so that you're going in having already gotten a laugh, right? But you also need systematic safety, right? So these are the things on the boat: railings, warning alarms. In comedy, I feel like that's what a producer's job is identifying risks and hazards and minimizing them. We're not eliminating them, but like often as a host, it's our job to look at the audience and see if anybody's had too much to drink and they're starting to shout a little more, or checking to see if our performers have come completely white as a sheet and they look really freaked out before they go on stage, right? So it's, you cannot make comedy a safe environment, but you can predict a lot of the things that might go wrong and have plans to insulate people from them.
And as a producer, that's kind of your role. You are in charge of the whole rodeo. You're in charge of making sure the audience is feeling good, and the performers are feeling good as well, and any staff or crew that you hire as well. That's all on your head. And we know from examples like the Rust movie what happens when producers don't really take safety into account on shows. That's a pretty extreme example. But producing is not something. You're creating a job site for artists to work, and you kind of need to think about that, which is a bummer as a silly little guy.
Oh, I'm all about a bummer as a silly little guy. I think it should be on my business cards, right?
You can have it.
No, perfect. And I think that it is fair to compare workplace risks, like on that movie set, to like people experiencing racism in their comedy workplaces, right? Like even at NewFunny, our lineups are still so white. And it's something that we see as a failure on the show, and we work all the time to do networking and outreach. But at the end of the day, I know that 2 white women are not especially qualified to spot and prevent racism. And I understand that people still see it as a really risky environment for them to come express themselves because of that. Right? And it's like, I think it's our responsibility as producers to acknowledge the real hurt that happens when people get attacked or belittled in our comedy workplaces because of those sort of like central truths, identifying truths, because often we run into this situation where maybe men who are not permitted to perform at our show are like, oh, well, you're just bullying us back. Like this is discrimination. Like this is whatever it is. And I really don't see it that way. I see it as this is, I think, a really important tool to adapt the comedy world to people who don't have access to it right now. And I do not see those men as in need of accessibility in that way. And I don't see it as a tool that they would benefit from access to the way that our performer base does.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That's really insightful. Another question that I had on my docket was straight, white, able-bodied man. All of those words are words that I'm not sure necessarily exist, right? They are you know me, English nerd, language nerd, and all of those words have so much behind them that I'm curious about, like, when people have people, straight, white, able people tried to be on your show before?
Yes.
What has been your reaction?
So usually it's because they don't understand what we're doing. Usually when a man who is not eligible for our show fills out the form, it's because they don't realize that they are not invited to perform there. And my usual approach, because I think you're right, most person classifications are oversimplified and not especially useful. My usual approach is to message that person and reiterate what the show is, because I also understand that there are a lot of people who might look to me like a straight, white, abled man, and I could be wrong on any of those 4 letters, right? They might be queer in a way that they're not able to publicly express. They might be racialized in a way that I can't recognize. They could have a disability I don't know about. They could have a gender identity I don't know about, right? So I don't ever like to be like, hey, I think you're not allowed here, because then I'm doing the exact same thing that we're trying to work against, right? My usual strategy is to reach out and say, hey, just as a reminder, here is, what the show is. And to my eye, you were not identifiably one of our eligible performers. And I want to warn you that participating in our show will cause people to speculate on which of those identities you belong to. And that if that's something you're comfortable being in conversation with people about, we're happy to have you on the show. But if that's something that you are not comfortable talking to people about, right? If you're right at the beginning of a queer journey, you might not want to have everyone in the room clock you as queer. And I've had both things happen. I've had men write back and go, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't mean to fill out the form. And I've also had men write back and say, yeah, I'm right at the beginning. And this feels like a good way to start telling people. And this felt like a good way for me to sort of begin a coming out, which is such a treasured, privilege to me to be able to be part of somebody's journey like that. We've been lucky that we've had very few, fuck you, misandrous bitches, you won't let me on your stage. We had a couple. You get them on Facebook comments. How is this even legal? You're discriminating, whatever. But I don't think that I've had a bad conversation with anybody who was trying to have a conversation with me. Mm-hmm. I think we don't put a lot of time and energy into people who are flaming us on the internet because I have a full life. I'm having a vibrant life full of friends and I don't have time to be mad on Facebook. Yeah. But anytime people want to talk to us about it, I'm very interested in having those conversations. And if somebody reaches out and decides for themselves that they're not eligible, we'd still love to see you in the audience. We do have plenty of swams who enjoy the show. Yeah. It's not just us drop kicking you guys for 2 straight hours. I promise.
No, yeah. That's not even men hardly ever come up.
Well, and that's the fascinating thing about it, right? Is that our show is completely centered on people who have some sort of a marginalized identity. Not much of the material is about those identities directly, right? The thing that
except mine.
Except Veronica Diamond does come up and do 10 minutes of lesbian jokes, no breaths, every single time. When you did a great Xena warrior princess set, which I would classify as highly gay.
Yeah.
But
the no breath part is also gay.
When you're showing off.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think part of what makes NewFunny really cool is even if a racialized person is coming up and doing a set about traffic, whatever, maybe not at all related to their identity is still informing the way that they experience that. So they're probably going to write the joke differently than a straight white abled man or a white able-bodied woman would write it, right? It's something that I say a lot is I don't think men should be writing dick jokes anymore, but I love hearing from the dolls. Oh yeah, if you're a non-man with a dick, I'm very curious about your dick jokes. And I think that that's one of the really cool things about having this mix of identities in the room is that you'll hear a brand new spin on a well-covered topic. And
dicks from whole new angles.
You wouldn't believe the dicks we're hearing about.
Not just top down.
Yeah, sideways even. Who knows? Can you tell I don't know a lot about dicks and their goings-ons? But, But yeah, I think that it's I don't remember what your original question was, and I think I've gone far away from it. But yeah, I think that I understand that a straight white abled man might hear what we're doing and assume that we hate him. I don't have the energy. I truly, it is that the show's not about them, and that's the beginning and end of it. And some men find that to be very exclusionary and emotionally challenging, and I would encourage them to look inside and figure out what places they have access to that we don't, that caused us to do that.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you so much for that. That's really insightful. I have been working on dick jokes my whole life. One of the and one of them that I'm working on at the moment, maybe I'll bring it up at a NewFunny, is conspiracy semen. Jizz doesn't exist.
As a lesbian. I've never seen it.
Jizz is a dragon as far as Veronica's concerned.
It's a conspiracy man, in my opinion.
That rules. Oh, that rules. Right? And this is what, it's, and I love hearing a sentence like that because I know that would kill at NewFunny.
Jizz isn't real.
It's just like weird, and because that's the other thing. I think people hear that we are deliberately building a welcoming space and assume that it's not nasty. We love when it's gross and yucky. We love weird. Like I think we've had more than one show where Cara and I co-hosting both did like a tight five about our dead dads. Like it's not that we're avoiding challenging topics at all. Right? And that's, again, something that's been really fun, right? Because I also think there's a lot of relief in being able to talk about a serious thing in a fun way.
Yeah. And feeling like you're in a space where you can do that. I'm not going to keep you much longer. I do have one more question, and it's about race. And you were talking about race in the show. I think this is a conversation that we're having as two kind of white people.
Yeah.
But the word white in itself, I feel like it's an oppressive tool. I feel like it is something that empowers and emboldens people who are racist because you can rally around an identity of skin color that actually has nothing, fuck all to do with my personal heritage. Like when people call me white, when I said white kind of trepidatiously because I don't identify as a white person. I identify as a Newfoundlander and my heritage is Irish and English. Like that's my heritage. And when people call me a white person, I'm like, you're fucking erasing my heritage and my identity. But all of these fucking assholes about white supremacy bullshit are always like, oh, it's my heritage. White isn't a heritage. You're erasing your own heritage in order to assume this new generic identity. And I think that's sad. And anyway, that's not really a question, I guess. That's what.
No, but
it's more of a comment than a question.
It is like something that's interesting about the NewFunny model is that we've based our system around social constructs which do a lot of harm. Right? Like it's because people often ask why we use the language that way. And it's like whiteness is bullshit. And the insistence of whiteness existing historically, all that has done is cause damage globally, right? Like it's not at all, like I don't particularly believe in the gender binary either, right? We talk about men a lot. And it is like, it's very tricky to be interacting with it so directly and being like, I think it's important as white people or as, white passing, white looking people, whatever it is, it's important for us to acknowledge that it is real in the way that it gives us advantages and it gives us a big leg up with other white-looking people. But it's also fake in the way that there is nothing that is true about white people, just like there's nothing that is true about people of any other race, right? So it's like, it's important for us to acknowledge the things that we are still benefiting from these systems while remaining critical and reminding those systems that we don't respect them.
Very interesting. Yeah, so that's NewFunny. That's Katy Warren. that's the vibe. If this kind of conversation is interesting to you, but you want it in a comedic format.
No, remember the onion thing. If the onion thing was interesting to you, come to the show.
That's right. This conversation doesn't actually ever happen at NewFunny. This is why I asked you here to talk about it, because NewFunny is just a place where we laugh and get together and joke around and tell silly jizz-based jokes, even though jizz isn't real. Like, can anybody prove it to me? I don't think so.
Please.
And don't.
Yeah, please nobody prove to Veronica that it's real. Please, it sounds like she's in a very special time of life, and I don't want to disrupt that at all. So nobody do anything that would prove that to her, please.
it would actually be a crime. It would be literally criminal.
Yeah, no doing crimes on Veronica Diamond.
Yeah.
That's another bold stance I'll take.
Prove
on
it
this
to me
podcast.
without jerking off in front of me, right? That's...
No, I don't want him to send you videos either, man.
No, I don't want videos either. You know what? This is getting cut. This part is... This is the part that's getting cut from the video. You're right. I don't want anything, even though it's not real. I mean, who would want to get all of these fake videos?
True. AI is out of control. They're making all the AI porn to make it seem like jizz is real.
Well, that's it. It's all AI, which stands for artificial insemination.
Oh! You're fast on wordplay. I like that.
So yes, thank you so much for coming and participating in this. It's so much longer than I thought it was going to be. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say to the audience about NewFunny? Get them come.
I think everybody is funny. I think everybody is funny when they're hanging out with their friends. And if you are a person who you and your friends love to laugh, but you think you don't like stand-up comedy, I would love for you to come to a NewFunny. We've heard from a lot of people who think they don't like stand-up, and it turns out they just don't like stand-up when it isn't marketed to them. So, and also, if you think you love stand-up, come to our show, because we're doing a really good job at it.
It's a really funny show. Yeah, congratulations on your almost 4 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for producing such a fun show and bringing forth such interesting questions into our community. I know that not everybody appreciates it, but I do. I love a little bit of drama. Yeah. I do. I'm a little trickster imp, and I like it when people are a little bit shaken up. And I hope that lots of people come see this podcast and get to hear that, and they come out to the show because it is a really fun time. Thank you so much for this conversation, Katy Warren of NewFunny, everyone.
That's me.
Again. And I guess tune in next time. We'll have somebody else producing another. We'll be talking to another producer.
Yay! Yeah, listen to more of Veronica's podcast. It's gonna be awesome.